for our ASSA and Swim Alberta Town Hall meeting. Just to give you a little overview, I'm Lynette Thorson. I'm the president of ASSA. I've been involved in swimming for 16 plus years. I started up in Region A in high level, where we swam for 12 to 13 years before moving to Region C in Lloydminster, where my older two still coach and swam up until 2 years ago. And then I still have a younger child still as an athlete with the Lloydminster Rebels as well. So on behalf of the board of directors of Alberta Summer Swimming, I would like to welcome you. I would like to do some introductions. So we have some current board members in attendance. We have Morgan Dozman, who's our treasurer, Richard Harris, our secretary, Andre Harp is our past president. We also have a number of our region reps, and I'm not sure, I think they're all in here. And then as well as our coaches rep, Glenn Wilson. If you don't know who your region rep is, please send us a message and we can make sure you get in touch with the right person. We also have a guest joining us today, Dean Schultz, the president of Swim Alberta, is also joining us for our meeting. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping and process for asking questions that we'd like to just kind of go over. So we're on the GoToMeeting platform. We're going to ask that everyone stay muted through the meeting unless we ask you to unmute to speak. Questions can be texted to 403, and I think it's on the screen, yeah, 403-804-7208. If you could state your name, club, and your question, and then we'll put you in the queue as they are received. If for some reason we don't get through them all, you can email one of the email addresses to the group of individuals there, Kevin, Cheryl, Val, or myself, and we will get the answers out to the group. So ASSA season at a glance. I'm sure that's what you're all excited about. So I'd like to share, I'll just wait maybe for, you good there? Okay. So I'd like to share an update on our plans for the summer, with the understanding that these plans are written in sidewalk chalk at the present time with COVID. Our goal is to welcome swimmers and families back in the pool as it is safe to do so. With the guidance of Alberta Health and Swim Alberta, we will ensure that any required health and safety protocols are in place, and that we do believe that swimming is a healthy exercise and a means of improving physical fitness for young people. We want to ensure that we're ready to respond to all the changing public measures. We also are preparing for other scenarios this summer. ASSA and Swim Alberta will continue to update you as we move forward. We ask that you for patience and that clubs maintain the ability to adapt, and we continue to work towards achieving your club goals. So what we can tell you, affiliation will begin on April 1st. Swimmer registration into the RTR will commence May 1st. Clubs can look to begin operating on May 1st under the current restrictions that will be in place. Clubs can choose an alternate start date after May 1st and can begin their season at any point up until August 30th. We have made the decision to extend the summer season to August 30th. Previously, we would have ended the season with the provincial championships in mid-August. But we're going to extend that a little longer. There is absolutely no deadline by which a club and swimmers must register. So if your facility does not open until July and you would like to get your swimmers in the water and training, by all means, you're welcome to affiliate and register swimmers then. So there is no deadline. All swimmers registering for the 2021 with the club for 2021 are required to be able to swim one length of the pool, be comfortable in the water, and be able to follow all protocols and guidelines as it relates to COVID-19. So this includes distancing, masking when required. Clubs are required to follow swimmers are also expected to be able to complete the competition readiness standards. As they have done in previous years. So most of you guys should be familiar with that as well. Coaches, senior swimmers, flotation devices are not permitted to be used as a method for a swimmer to be able to meet the above requirements. So they have to be able to do it independently. The standard coach compliance deadline will still remain as June 1st. And it's the same as it has been in past years. There will be no change there. So if you have registered after June 1st, you would have had 2 weeks to complete all the requirements. Details around competitions, we are going to release those as we get closer to the time and we have a better idea of what things are going to look like. What we do for competitions will be greatly dependent on what the restrictions are at that time. So that's kind of a brief of where we are headed with ASSA for the summer. I want to speak to you a little bit about the ASSA and Swim Alberta relationship because it is an important relationship to ASSA. It is unique and it's made up by a service agreement between both organizations. Swim Alberta is the provincial governing body for competitive swimming in all of Alberta. In addition to governing duties for the sport, Swim Alberta invests in and supports our coach development, certification, official development and certification, support for competitions, athlete development and programs, as well as support clubs in assisting them in setting up club programs and operating efficiently. Because of our service agreement and because we're a member of Swim Alberta, ASSA, including our club, is included in the club programs and therefore benefit from all the same program and services. ASSA remains, as it had in previous years, under the umbrella of to support summer swim clubs and its registered members. We are an active and independent non-for-profit organization with rules and guidelines that are specific to summer swimming, aligned where necessary with Swim Alberta and Swimming Canada. So what does this mean for ASSA? Over the last 2 years, we have evolved, and with that comes changes. We have seen a revamp of our rules and regs, policies, and adoption of new policies that the board felt at the time better reflected where our membership is at today and where society is at. We have launched a new website and are extremely excited that now summer swimmers' times will receive official times in the national databases. What this does is provide more opportunity, especially for older swimmers who are looking to go on to university swimming or what have you. So it opens more doors, gives more opportunities. Officials also may find it easier now to advance in their official certification because meets are now sanctioned. In previous, we used the term sanctioning in ASSA, but our meets were actually only approved. So now that they will be officially sanctioned under Swim Alberta, updating official records and getting those necessary evaluations hopefully will become easier for officials. Now, while it may seem overwhelming and hard to understand at times, rest assured we are here to support you every step of the way, and you're not in this alone. We know that there's going to be speed bumps and hurdles, and we will do this together. So what has not changed? ASSA still remains committed to summer swimming while supporting swimming in Alberta as a whole. We remain committed to the core values and visions as you have been accustomed to. The ASSA board members remain the first point of contact for all questions relating to rules and guidelines specific to summer swimming. Please, whenever possible, reach out to us so that we can make sure that you have the correct information as it's available. So the agenda this evening will include, I know you have a lot of questions. And thanks for sending those in advance of the meeting. I am hopeful through the updates that we will be able to address most of your burning questions. If not, we will look to take additional questions at the end of the updates. Cheryl will provide an overview of what we can expect for the upcoming season. And Kevin will provide an update on the return to swimming requirements and the process, followed by the affiliation with Val. Before we dive into the formal updates, and as we work close with Swim Alberta, I thought it would be helpful for the ASSA clubs to have the opportunity to meet the president of Swim Alberta, Dean Schultz. I've had the pleasure of working with Dean over the last 3 years on the Swim Alberta board of directors. Dean, would you like to say hello and a few words tonight?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynette. And it's more like I've had the pleasure of working with you, Lynette, on our board. And I would, before I ramble on too much here, but I'd like to, thank Lynette for her contributions. She certainly represented summer swimming exceptionally well and really has that great vision and strategic look about swimming within our province as a whole. So it's been a wonderful addition, and thank you, Lynette. The next thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank all of you. I think, it's been one heck of a past 12 months with many ups and downs, and, without, the efforts of all the presidents and region reps and some coaches online here, I think, it doesn't provide the opportunity for what's the most important thing, which is our swimmers, and making sure they have an opportunity to do an activity they love, which is competitive swimming. And, my beginnings were summer swimming many, many moons ago. I've been involved in swimming for, 44, 45 years now in one aspect of another. And, my beginning was summer swimming. Swam for the Sailfish and then ended up coaching there and moved on through my career through university and coaching and volunteering. And I'm actually just starting to be a parent of the swimmers now. So I'm there and really value the importance of swimming in our province, regardless of whether you do it as a young person in summer, year round, masters, or do it just to enjoy it for fun. It's really, really important. The one thing I do appreciate about competitive swimming in our province is it really does reach all four corners, and it really touches on any community within our province here that has a pool, and in some places other swimming opportunities and lakes and things like that too. Maybe that's a little bit dated, but regardless, it's just an absolute wonderful opportunity, and thank you very much. Again, we're here to help, and I know Cheryl and Kevin are really the point people, for all of our members in swimming in Alberta, and they do a wonderful job and are here to help. So again, I'm fingers crossed. It's going to be an interesting summer with hopefully some really good, unique opportunities for summer swimming to be in the pool, and again, fingers crossed, compete in a different way. Thank you, Lynette, for giving me a couple of minutes.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. All righty. I would like to introduce Cheryl Humphrey. She's the Executive Director of Swim Alberta. She's going to give us a high-level overview of what clubs can expect to see in 2021 for the summer swim season. Cheryl.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynette. And I'll just quickly introduce the staff too. We have Kevin Dennis with us tonight, who will be walking through some of the return to swimming, which I know you are all eager to hear about. And Val Carr as well, who will talk a little bit about the affiliation and registration system. And most of you I know have probably worked with Val and Kevin over the last few years if you've I've been involved on the club board at Summer Swimming, and they are your main go-to contacts. But as Dean said, we're all here to help and support you through the summer season. I would like to welcome you to the upcoming summer season as I look out my window and see snow flying right now, but I do know summer is coming. And I truly do look forward to supporting the summer clubs and the summer swimmers to return safely to the water. I appreciate that there's a lot of uncertainty as we all begin to plan for what the summer season looks like. It will be a very different season than what you have been used to in the past. It's been a very different year as well for our year-round clubs who have been sort of in and out of the water with different restrictions. I appreciate all the questions that came in advance of the meeting tonight. I think we have covered most of them off in the presentation, but if we have missed anything or you have further questions, feel free to text. I put that text in the chat box, so that's actually coming in to me, and we'll get it to the right person to answer here on the call. And if there's stuff that comes in after, feel free to email and we will get back to you as soon as we can. As we approach the summer season, I would say the best sort of guidance I can give you at this point is to be both adaptable and flexible. I think we can anticipate that you're going to see changes between what we share tonight. Kevin's going to kind of give you an idea of what you could expect if you were in the water right now, and what you can do on May 1st. You can anticipate that you may see restrictions ease, and please anticipate that you may see restrictions tighten. We could see things shut down again. I am very hopeful that we won't see that, but that is part of the reality that we're living through right now. I would just say that to that, we're here to support and guide. We'll provide answers as we can and help you interpret the health orders and everything that you need to know to safely get the swimmers in the water. That's what we see our role here as Swim Alberta being. I want to talk a little bit about the We Are Ready campaign, and part of this campaign is really to show that Swim Alberta really is advocating, and we have been through the entire pandemic, for the entire swimming community, including summer swimming, even though you haven't yet been in the water, although we had a few in the water last summer. We have been working closely throughout all of this with Alberta Health, with the government of Alberta. So we report in through the Sport, Physical Activity and Recreation Division of the Culture, Multiculturalism and Status of Women Ministry. So we've been working very closely with them. We have been working very closely with facilities all across the province and municipalities as well too, to sort of advocate for a return to swimming, to provide them guidance and advice on what our swim clubs are doing and cannot do as they enter the water. I don't know, Kevin, if you can just check and mute for me, please.
Okay, good. Awesome.
So we've been doing all of that behind the scenes as we prepare. We have been working directly with schools and facilities to support an opening, and we'll continue to do so as we go through the summer season. In February, we launched the first phase of the We Are Ready campaign. We were fortunate back in November to work with a team of doctors that we actually pulled together that did a retrospective study of the transmission of COVID in our daily training environment. Some of our summer clubs who were in the water last year actually participated in that study with us. From that and the data that we found, we were able to begin to build the We Are Ready campaign, which is really a campaign that focuses first on safety first of our athletes, and it uses an evidence-based approach to demonstrate how we can safely be in the water. It launched a couple weeks ago with some infographics, and then recently we partnered up with Life Saving Alberta and produced 3 videos that I know many of you have seen that was launched, and again, really to promote an evidence-based approach around what we could expect to return to the water. We know there's been 0 transmissions within the cohort training model that we ran from June to November. And that we also know the effects of chlorine. And we know that we have strong protocols that Kevin will share with you, and that our facilities in working with the Life Saving Society also have strong protocols to return to swimming. So we encourage you to share. We have shared that campaign with ministers within the government. It has been shared with Jason Kenney, whether he's seen it or not, I'm not sure, with Alberta Health, with the deputy minister and an assistant deputy minister within our own ministry, and I know they have seen it. So it has actually had international reach. And with the Life Saving Society, we have been able to partner really well to get it out to facilities. What you can expect to Swim Alberta from sort of a support perspective this summer, I just want to say first that safety and well-being of our entire membership is our first priority and will remain our priority as we work through supporting you back to a return to swim. The staff have actually had a year now of working through a pandemic, and we've learned lots. We've learned when to pause, and we've to seek the right information, and we've learned when to be nimble and quick and work really quick and fast behind the scenes to get information out to our clubs so that they can have it to return quickly to the pool with changing health orders. And Kevin will share a little bit more about that process with you. What you can expect from us is a commitment to have timely and updated return to swimming requirements as soon as we can. And you'll see what that document is in a minute. And it will really be your guide to what you can do in the water with your athletes. You will get support and guidance from us as we navigate and help you navigate through a safe return to swimming, including future training sessions. So today is really sort of a high-level overview of what you can expect. And as we get closer to the launch of the summer season, you can expect some more detailed information sessions so coaches and club boards know fully what they can do as they return to swimming. We will continue to work with pool operators and facilities to share our return to swimming requirements, often in advance when we can, or as health orders are changing as well. We've done information sessions with facilities and pools across the province in the past, and we'll continue to do so as we look to incorporate more clubs through our summer clubs into pools that may not already have clubs within them. You can possibly expect to return to some type of competition, and Kevin will talk about that a little bit. Right now, there is no competitions permitted, and that is through Alberta Health. But I would expect that by the time we reach the summer months, we may be able to have some modified competitions, so very different than what you were used to in the past. And we have put a lot of work into developing what those modified competitions can look like with minimal officials on the pool deck. And as we approach that time when that opportunity is open to us, again, you have our guarantee and support that will help and train you through those so that you know what you can do so that you can safely return to competition when it's allowed. We will continue to advocate for the sport of swimming, again, always with a focus on our membership as a priority. One of the committees I sit on is actually a stakeholders committee with Alberta Health. We had a meeting today, so there is sort of a handful of sports that have been invited to sit on that. One of the other organizations that sits on that with Alberta Health is Life Saving Alberta. And I can tell you that today on the call, we promoted the opening of outdoor pools and early guidance to our communities that have outdoor pools so that they could begin to understand what they could do and how they could begin to operate. That came directly from Life Saving Society of Alberta with support from Swim Alberta as well too. There was follow-up that was done after that meeting just to let Alberta Health know and the government of Alberta exactly how many summer clubs we would have coming on board through the summer and the number of swimmers that potentially could be impacted. So again, it's really a committee to help influence. We're not decision makers, but it's our opportunity to be able to share sort of what we're experiencing out in the community. Part of it is to work to influence what step 3 will look like for our sport. And I can tell you that some of the themes that have been coming out of those discussions is whether we look at increasing numbers or decreasing distancing, how we are going to increase gameplay is what we call it, but it would be competitions from a swimming perspective, the cohort model, and when that may return, as well as masking. These are decisions that are outside of our control. They are within the control of Alberta Health, but what we're able to do is influence and provide some of our feedback to that. What they also shared with us today, and I'll share with you because I think it is sort of a hint of positivity, that I would say Alberta Health has communicated out that currently we're in a place of caution, and I think with the rising variants that we've seen, that's sort of the state we're in, but that we're doing work going into moving forward. So that's what they are focused on, and that they're very optimistic that the move forward with the vaccine program will see some easing of restrictions in the coming months. If you want to take a quick look, and Kevin's going to put up a slide about on the Swim Alberta webpage, which is our COVID-19 webpage, and there's drop-down menus, and this is just a slide, so I can't actually open it up for you. But there's a number of resources in there that are available as well to our summer clubs and summer membership. So you'll see there's a return to swimming and competition, and this is where the document that Kevin's going to talk about is housed, as well as additional forms and checklists and everything you will need to help you plan for a return to swimming. Also within that, we have our We Are Ready campaign, so you can go there, you can share videos from there. There's some downloadable infographics. Or tracking who's in the news, and we've got some summer clubs already in the news in there, so you can take a look at there, as well as additional resources for clubs, coaches, and just some general Swim Alberta resources. The other piece that I would just draw your attention to is the mental health and wellness area within that tab, and it is a full page of resources that are available to our membership, shall you need it. We had run through our year-round programs back in January, some mental health and wellness sessions with some experts that we work with. That is something we can certainly look to do as we approach the summer months for our summer coaches and our summer swimmers. There's also, we'll be signing you up once registration starts for a mental health and wellness newsletter that we've started, and previous editions are available on that website. So I appreciate this is the Swim Alberta website, not the ASSA website. It's hard for us to duplicate all that, but you're welcome to go into that area and use those resources and have full access to them. The other thing I just wanted to touch on briefly was insurance, and Val might touch on this a little bit as well too, from some of the questions that come in. But I wanted to touch on a few of them at a high level. Not to sort of put fear in you, but there is no insurance for COVID or the transmission of COVID. We get that question asked quite a lot. What that means is that as summer club programs, you just need to follow all the guidelines of Alberta Health and all the requirements that Swim Alberta sets out, which are fully aligned to Alberta Health, because those are the things that we are allowed to do. The other thing that was communicated with us on the Alberta Health stakeholder engagement meeting today is that where they're seeing outbreaks is where people are not following the guidelines. So the best we can do to follow the guidelines as the swim community, I think you'll find that you'll see very little transmission within your club programs. We continue to carry accident insurance for all participants, so that's coaches and athletes and officials when they're on the pool deck, as well as general liability insurance for our clubs. So the policy is a $5 million policy with an additional $5 million umbrella. So you are covered through those insurance programs, as well as the directors and officers liability for all club boards that operate under the Swim Alberta umbrella. So that includes all of our summer clubs as well too. So those are some of the questions that were asked around insurance. You do not need any additional insurance for any activity that's approved through Swim Alberta. So that includes Zoom workouts. There were some questions asked there, but we do have guidelines around what you can and cannot do within a Zoom workout. So as long as you follow all the requirements that are really laid out in the document that Kevin's going to share, it will give you some of those guidelines that you need to do with in-person workouts, with the Zoom workouts, with outdoor workouts, dry land, that type of thing. Kevin will speak a little bit about a COVID coordinator role, which I think is an important role that every club will need to have in place. And we can, as we get closer to the summer season, we'll look at offering some additional training and information sessions specific to those roles and to clubs. So that's sort of high-level insurance. We'll touch a little bit more, I think, when Val does the registration piece. But if you have any other questions, feel free to send them in. The final thing I wanted to just talk about before I turned it over to Kevin to talk about the return to swimming is a little bit about the COVID-19 emergency funding that came to the province of Alberta, all the provinces actually, through Sport Canada and Heritage Canada. So Alberta received, I think it was $6 million that was directed to support sport and recreation groups. Some of that money did come to Swim Alberta, and some of it we have dispersed out to our various memberships. So from a summer swimming perspective, what we'll be doing to support you with that funding is that we will be waiving your club affiliation fee for Swim Alberta this summer. And we will also be looking at putting $1,000 per region into your regional playoffs or regional events. that can either be used this summer or in the summer of 2022 in case summer it doesn't quite work out. But you might find that we do regionals over multiple days or multiple weekends, and we'll kind of get to that when we get to the competition piece, and we'll look at how we can provide cost offset facilities and that type of thing. So we'll work out those details with the regions, but know that we've earmarked $1,000 per each region to help offset some of the costs that we anticipate that you'll be experiencing as we work through the summer. So that's my high level, what you can expect. I guess just in summary, I want to just highlight we are here. We're here to support. We want to see you all back in the water as safely as you can, and we will do our best to support all the swimmers getting back in the water in that way, understanding that we have restrictions to work through, and we'll guide and help you through understanding what those are. And we're here, so reach out with any questions at any time to either myself, Val, or Kevin. I would say Val and Kevin are your first points of contact, because I'll often put you back there because sometimes I can't answer the questions because they're really good at knowing what they do. But I'm here as well too if there's anything that we can do to help them support. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Lynette, and thank everybody for giving me the time to share some highlights with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for the insight to the season and for your ongoing, for Swim Alberta's ongoing support. For those of you who don't know, Cheryl and her team put in a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes, lots of stuff that we don't see. I've had the privilege to kind of get an inside look over the winter, and the amount of times that I have seen them pivot one way just to pivot the other way about 2 hours later, it's been unreal. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for your advocacy, making sure that our clubs and swimmers can get back in the water. So now I would like to introduce Kevin Dennis. He is the Sport Development Director at Swim Alberta. Some of you may have touched base with him already. Some of you might know him if you dealt with any summer games, anything like that. He's going to walk us through some key points about the return to swimming process. So Kevin.
Thank you, Lynette. Thanks everybody for coming on and I think doing the work for your organizations to look at the return to swimming. So I think to start, I'm just going to speak quickly about what the current requirements are, specifically because we don't know if the requirements are going to change between now and the start of the season, or if there's going to be different requirements between now and the start of the season. So all we know is what we know within the current environment. And so in terms of what the current requirements are, groups in terms of sport training have a maximum group size of 10, which includes the coach. There's a 3 meters distancing requirement during intense indoor activity. And for outdoor, it's actually 2 meters. So, when it comes to the summer season, if there's outdoor pools, they might have or will likely have a different condition than the indoor. Currently, group training is limited to ages 18 and under. The only thing that is an exception to that at this point would be the varsity programs, which are, the actual university teams themselves. So in terms of coaches, they must be masked at all times. They can coach multiple groups. However, they can only be coaching one group at a time. So meaning, a coach can't be coaching 2 different groups at one time and going back and forth between 2 different groups of 9. That coach is a part of the group of 10. They could coach a group between 4 to 5 p.m. and then that group leaves, another group comes in. They can coach a second group between 5:15 and 6:15 p.m. In terms of all the other participants, masks are required for everybody until the high intensity portion of the activity begins, and then following the activity. So following the activity, they find a place to put their mask that's dry, they put their mask on, they go through the change room, whatever the case is. In terms of spectators at this point, the sport guidance that we align to says that spectators are not permitted. And so just in terms of, how that works for sport, they can't be, there can't be a spectator area that's right beside the pool deck. There can't be parents on the pool deck. that are just watching type of thing. So, if there is ever a case where there's a one-on-one, one coach with one athlete, when it comes to the safe sport side of things, there needs to be another body that is with the coach and with the athlete. And so, whether that's a lifeguard, or whether that's like making sure there's other users there, if somebody's required for an assistance because the individual might be a para swimmer, there might be other scenarios. And so any of those other scenarios, those would be something where the club would need to work with the facility to make sure that everything is happening, makes sense, is safe for the athletes, it's operating within the guidelines of Alberta Health. And in terms of any of these requirements, I'm happy to receive phone calls, emails, whatever the case is, to make sure that the clubs are following what the current requirements are, and making sure there's an understanding that way. So just in terms of our current requirements, as Cheryl mentioned, there's a return to swimming requirements page on our website that's under the COVID-19 information. Our requirements document has a number of training examples, and my bullet point here makes it seem very exciting. So some of the examples for the training might include widths, double lane circle swimming with empty lanes in between, end to end. And when I say and more, I guess what I'm trying to say is most of these examples I've received from programs. And so when clubs have done something that they haven't seen documented anywhere, they've let me know. And I've been able to, add them as appropriate to expand the document. And so I'd love to say that they're all my own ideas. This has actually come from the community of clubs and from clubs and coaches that have shared this information to make sure that everybody else is aware. And so in terms of publishing this in the requirements document, Cheryl had mentioned that, we work closely with facilities. We've published pictures in our requirements document. We've made sure that this document is shared to the facilities so that the facilities can actually picture easier what the clubs are going to be doing. So it's not that every individual club needs to go to the facility with their specific plan. But along those lines, it is very, very important that every club work with their facility to make sure that the facility is aware of what's happening. If there's extra signage that's involved, if there's extra communication to other members that might be present, whatever those cases are. One other piece that is in our return to swimming requirements is the COVID-19 response coordinator. Now, it's a recommended role for all clubs to have this individual. The individual that is the response coordinator, there's a role description in the return to swimming requirements as one of the appendixes, and the role description, it might say something, report anything to Swim Alberta. It might say, be aware of all the any current Alberta health requirements. Individuals that have done this role in the past have been, they might be nurses, they might be doctors, they might be people that work for Alberta Health. Anything that allows somebody in the club to have that access to information, or anything, and anybody that is on top of that information is the appropriate person. So it is recommended, a recommended role within the club to make sure that communication is happening to the club and then back to Alberta Summer Swimming, or or whatever type of communication is needed. In terms of future requirements, and currently we're at the Alberta Step 2, and in terms of what Step 3 looks like, details are not known at this time. I'd love to say that as Swim Alberta, we got a private note from the government, prior to, but that's not the case. We receive the update while it's live, on on the Alberta Health website or on CBC or wherever the live update is. And so currently, all we know is that Step 3 identifies adult sport and the further easing of restrictions for youth sport. And it might not even say further easing, it says potential further easing of restrictions. And so, you know, there's not a lot of information there for us to know what the actual Step 3 looks like. So in terms of where we are, all we know is that Step 2 is what's currently provided. For any of the summer clubs that are planning, for any of you that are planning for how this looks in the summer, it's important that everybody plans for what the current condition is, as well as, you know, what the future conditions might look like. And so, you know, I'd love to have a better answer to any questions that come up to what the future looks like than that. I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about what happens when restrictions change. And so over the last year, we've experienced a number of restriction changes. And sometimes when restrictions have changed, we've received communication within minutes asking what has happened. And so just to give everybody a framework of, you know, potentially what could happen. Now, this order, I've made a little note down at the bottom that it depends on the change. So, but these are some of the things that could happen, and the order might be incorrect. So there's an announcement by Alberta Health saying that there's been a change. Some days after, so it says, you know, it says several days after that the health order is published. This could be up to a week after. You know, it could be 24 hours, 48 hours. You know, that's something that needs to be read and made sure that the wording in that health order is, you know, specific to what we need to understand for our sport. Clarification from Alberta Health or SPAR, which is Sport, Physical Activity and Recreation. You know, that clarification is also something that may need to be received before anything can be published. After that, Storm Alberta would publish new requirements. After published requirements, there would be communication
you have
to
3 things to do.
Clubs.
Okay, you can get up pretty quick.
Clubs meaning head coaches, club presidents, as well as sharing the communication with facilities to make sure that they're aware that that we have new requirements for the operations of our sport. And then finally, if there's a major change or there's a change that's significant enough that it's going to revise club operations, there would be some form of webinar or communication opportunity with all the clubs. And so, you know, we're talking about this really briefly right now. The plan would be that prior to the start of the 2021 season for summer swimming, we would offer some form of return to swimming training. And so that might be under what the current condition is. That might be what future condition is, depending on what happens over the next, you know, 4 to 5 weeks, you know, prior to the start of the season. Just in terms of return to competition, at this point, competitions are not permitted. We did a lot of work on return to competition with what the prior guidelines were or prior requirements were for sport. You know, with the cohort model, you know, gathering size of X amount indoors. You know, we had distancing, we had a lot of different pieces. We published that October 30th. Now, any requirements that we have to call.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? My phone just died, and so I just had to switch to computer audio.
Oh, there you go.
And yeah.
Okay, sorry, my phone just apparently died. So just in terms of, I think what I just told everybody was that the return to competition will align to to requirements. Some of the resources that we developed were a competition safety plan template, a facility diagram template, which included sort of swimmer flow, location of officials. There's a competition checklist, which includes all the pieces that you would need that are aligned to the requirements. And there was also a minimum officials roster, and that minimum officials roster would look vastly different from how officiating rosters have looked previously for any of the normal swim meets. And so that minimum officials roster is just trying to find a way to make sure that if we have a gathering size of 50, that 40 of those 50 are not officials, that ideally we've got 10 to 15 maybe officials. I'm making up numbers here depending on the number of lanes, and there's a lot of other factors there. But those minimum number of officials do not take away from the opportunities for the swimmers to be participating. So those are a lot of the competition resources that we have. In terms of training and orientation, we provided training and orientation for the referees, as well as for the competition safety coordinators. The competition safety coordinator is a different role than the COVID-19 response coordinator, but it could be the same person. There is actually a role description on that Return to Swimming website with all those resources. And so it could be the meet manager, it could be the referee, it could be the response coordinator, it could be a head coach, it could be a number of different individuals. And so that type of orientation would be expected prior to competitions occurring. And those are all the pieces that I had to talk about tonight. So I'll just turn it back over to Lynette. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kevin. And we really appreciate all your out-of-the-box thinking it has taken to put some of this stuff together. It's been a lot of work, and we appreciate all that you've done, especially the forward thinking that has gone into getting our swimmers in the water. So now Val Carr is our manager of membership services. For most of you, Val is our first point of contact for most of our clubs. For items that relate to membership and affiliation with Swim Alberta. Val will go through the affiliation process with us. Welcome, Val.
Hello, thanks, Lynette. Just to reiterate what Lynette said at the beginning of the meeting, the affiliation package will be distributed to region reps on April 1st, and they will get it to you. Inside that affiliation package is a checklist, which will, if you follow it, you'll have everything you need by the time you go to complete the online form. The documentation that is required are bylaws, current audited or signed financial statements, current proof of filing, and your last minutes from your AGM. Sorry, your minutes from your last AGM. I am going to put on some club registrar training because most of you are going to be new to the Swimming Canada database. So that will be held on April 30th and April 20th. After the training, if you can't make the training, I'm always here to answer your questions. Don't let it get to the point where you get frustrated. Please just give me a call or shoot me an email. We did have a question about the tryout period. The tryout period covered by insurance is May 1st to May 14th. With our insurance provider, that's not a flexible date. So if your club starts July 1st, there is no 2-week tryout period. It's just the accident insurance policy that will not cover your non-members. You still have general liability. You still have board of directors insurance. If a club affiliates, again, after the June 1st coach compliance deadline, those coaches will have 30 days to complete their compliance. So again, if your club cannot start until July 1st, your coaches will have 30 days following July 1st to become fully compliant. And we will work with you on that and make sure that that's as easy a process as possible. Thanks, Lynette.
Thank you very much, Val, and thank you for fielding all our calls about affiliation all the time. We really appreciate that. So now we are going to move on to the fees for the 2021 swim season. I'm just going to give you an overview of the ASSA fees, and then Cheryl will highlight any necessary fees from Swim Alberta. So we realize that for a lot of clubs that this is very unstable economically, and that costs are rising, and it's of great concern. So with that in mind, we have made the following adjustments for the fee schedule for this season. So swimmer registration will be $23. The coach registration fee of $15 will be waived. The club affiliation fee of $40 will be waived. So ASSA fees, clubs are only paying $23 for the swimmer affiliation. Additionally, clubs are also eligible for the following subsidies. So in previous correspondence, we have let all clubs know that High Tech or Meet Manager or a program of your choosing is going to be required for entries and what have you into the RTR. Last March, ASSA approved that we would reimburse each club $350 for, it's a one-time reimbursement for the purchase of that program. Previous correspondence, we did outline the contacts if you wanted to go with High Tech. And I believe there was some contacts as well for Meet Manager. If you'd like those sent again, just email the albertasummerswimming@gmail.com and we can forward those to you again. Regions can also expect to receive $1,000 towards regionals, whether it be held either virtually and in person. So that is the same as in previous years. So we are committing $1,000 to each region as well. So that is the fee schedule for ASSA. Cheryl, did you have anything you wanted to highlight for the Swim Alberta fees?
No, sorry, Lynette, I just combined all the fees there, so I don't have the nice breakdown like you have. So I just shared what Val would have in the registration affiliation package there. So it's there's no changes in the swimmer registration fee from last year, right? So the combined fee is $51.25, and then the coach fee, which includes the Swim Alberta, Swimming Canada, and CSCA. They've changed their name. They've dropped their T in there. Is $109, and then of course there'll be no ASSA fee in there. So this will all be in the affiliation package that Val will send out on April 1st. So.
Thank you, Cheryl. So one of the questions that we did receive a lot of is the question around refunds. So unfortunately, we do not provide refunds. Of Swim Alberta, well, Swim Alberta doesn't provide refunds, and ASSA does not provide refunds for swimmer and club affiliations. So when it's required, we do encourage clubs to refund families a prorated amount less the ASSA and Swim Alberta fees. So that if you're offering refunds to your club, that is how to kind of get around that. And that's kind of all. I guess now we can open it up for questions.
Mm-hmm. And we've had a couple questions already come in. One, I'm just going to get Val to re-clarify the question around how do you register a coach by June 1st if the club isn't registered by that date? But Val, the club can actually be registered prior to June 1st, even if they're not registering their swimmers, or their swimmers may not be in the water by June 1st. And they could actually begin the coach compliance prior to that date as well too, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you know that you're going to run, but you're not going to be in the water until July 1st, you can still affiliate May 1st. If you know who your coaches are, you can get your coaches registered on May 1st, and we can get them compliant.
And just to kind of elaborate on that, and I think this question came up too, and Val, please jump in if I misspeak. We had the question is, could clubs affiliate but not register swimmers? And yes, they can. To stay a member of ASSA, you would need to be an active club, you would need to affiliate, but you do not have to register your swimmers. So same process would apply for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would probably encourage clubs to do that. Like if you anticipate, because there's no club affiliation fee this year, you can begin to do your coach compliance requirements as well too, and make that payment sort of towards the end in case something happens that you don't run. But I would start that process for both those two. And you could actually even start the swimmer registration, Val, and just leave them as pending and not pay, right? So you can actually begin to register your swimmers and just hold off on the payment piece is what I would suggest that you probably do, just so you can get some of that pre-work done and you're not scrambling on opening day, right? So a question we had come in, and this is really, Kevin, this is a Kevin question. It's a good one actually, because it relates to the groups of 10. So what defines a group? Is the pool max of 10, or is that training group at 10? So the question basically is if can they have more than one group in a pool is what they're seeking clarity on. So do you want to maybe address that, Kevin?
Sure thing. And so some of the examples actually that we have at the end of our return to swimming requirements demonstrate that more than one group of 10 can be in a facility at a time. And that is also clarified in the sport guidance that is currently available on Alberta Health. So there can be more than one group of 10 in a facility. It's up to the facility to designate the space for each group of 10, I think is the way that it's worded. So if appropriate, a facility could have, 3 or 4, like a pool could have 3 or 4 groups of 10, but it's, as long as there's a minimum of 3 meters of currently, as long as there's a minimum of 3 meters of distancing between each group, and like all the groups need to be separated, including the coaches.
Groups can't intermingle, right, is the key there. So you can't have a coach or a group intermingle. We did have a question. Now they're starting to come in fast and furious. This is where my texting ability and my refining text messages that I rest. I believe we've answered the question that came in from Cochrane, from Kevin, around swimmers in water on May 1st. I think Val addressed that question. If she didn't, send me another text and let me know. Are there any changes to the requirements for coach compliance? So that would be a Val question.
The only change in coach compliance for this year is coaches must complete either the Coaching Association of Canada's Safe Sport module or the Respect in Sport module. There are links to both those requirements actually in the affiliation package because it is a new requirement. But other than that, there is no change. They require coach education, police checks. If your coaches did not work last season, they will all be required to submit police checks. There's the Swim Alberta screening and the screening with the CSCA.
Thank you, Val. Kirby from North Edmonton Swim Club. Hello, Kirby. Well, we have access to the historical swimmer database and meet database again. So I know Val and Lynette have been working on that. So you want to provide an update there?
Yeah. So I would like to reassure all our members that we do have all the historical data in the database. Right now, we are actually working with the website developers to make sure that you can access all the information in a user-friendly manner. I believe we're going to be making some transitions and what have you. So there is no actual timeline on when that's going to be complete. I do believe it's sooner than later, though. Val, did you want to add anything to that?
No, right now, just for information purposes, there are 2 gigantic spreadsheets that are available that do have swimmers' times from meets from 2019 and 2018. We do realize that they are hard to use, but they are there. If you needed to access a swimmer time prior to the archive data being available.
Yeah. So what you might see is you might see a link to archived information, which would be anything previous to, I guess, 2019. So that would be classed as the archive data. And then going forward, you will see the swimmers' times in the RTR and stuff like that as we transition and move that over. So just so that you know that it is coming.
Perfect. Thanks, Lynette and Val. Another question that has come in, I'm not sure from who, but can we register new ASSA swimmers this year? And is there a minimum age for swimmers?
So there is no minimum age for swimmers other than the requirements that we spoke to at the beginning, so that they must be able to swim independently. They cannot use any flotation devices. A coach cannot assist them. It must be 100% independent, and they must be able to complete the competition readiness standards, which the outline to the standards, I believe, is on the Swim Alberta website for to reference. No, there is no minimum age requirement.
I think the only thing clubs will need to be sort of cognizant of this year is you are going to have likely smaller groups, would be my guess, as we lead into summer, and a strong chance that you're going to have to maintain distancing between the coach and your athletes, right? And so just consider that with ages. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to speak to the competition readiness standards a little bit.
Not specific to the competition readiness standard, but if I was just to speak to the, the coaches maintaining distancing, the 3 meters of distancing is required, for coaches as well as all the athletes. With the coaches being masked, there is a note with the sport guidance that coaches are permitted to come within the physical distancing requirement for the purposes of technical correction for a brief period of time. So if you're trying to outline to a swimmer to hold their elbow up high, whatever the case is, come in, show the technical correction, remove yourself from that distancing. So it's for a brief period of time. It's not, so I would say it that way. In terms of the competition readiness standard, the standard is 25 meters, climbing out, jumping back in, treading water for 30 seconds, and then another 25 meters. So it is more than a 25-meter swim for the competition readiness standard. And that competition readiness standard does not include, that does not permit, grabbing onto the lane rope. It's a single effort, making sure that swimmers are able to be safe in the water without assistance. And based on the distancing requirements, that competition readiness standard ensures that individuals can be training safely and as well as maintaining their distance from others in the pool at all times, which is what's required in the sport guidance for all the sports at this point.
Another question here, and Val, this is yours, so get ready to come back on. If our affiliation info hasn't changed from last application 2020, does it need to be resubmitted for the 2021 season? And I'm assuming they're meaning the uploading of the bylaws, some of those items, right?
Yes, for the 2021 season, we're going to ask that you re-upload those 4 documents. So your proof of filing, your last AGM minutes, audited or signed financial statements, and your most current bylaws. Following this season's upload of those documents, we will only be asking for bylaws if they change. The other 3 documents are always an annual requirement.
Thank you, Val. And then just a question on new swimmers to ASSA. So I know last year that we weren't looking at allowing new registrations, but there are a new swimmer can join for the summer season this year. Do lifeguards factor into the members of the groups at all? Kevin, that would be your question.
The lifeguards are not part of that group size of 10. At this point, that group size is the members that are a part of that group, as well as the coach.
We have a question from Glenn Morey with Medicine Hat. Can a group have 2 coaches and 8 swimmers? If one coach is a community coach, then you would need a level 1-2 coach mentoring still.
That's correct. So the maximum group size is 10. If there's 2 coaches, that might be a decision that a club makes to make sure that there's, a coach at the 25, like at one end of the pool, and a coach at the other end of the pool. And that helps people do 25-meter, and stop for feedback at both ends with 2 coaches. And then that community coach would be, somebody that is being supervised or is there in an assistant role. So that would be a completely appropriate, way to manage your groups.
Kevin, do you actually have to have that community coach supervised within that group, or can they be responsible for another group of 9 athletes so long as a swimming 101 coach is on the pool deck with another group?
That is in terms of the requirements for a community coach. The intent is that the community coach, based on their level of training, is that they're not independently responsible for a group. That being said, if you have, and I'm going to make up a scenario here, if you have an experienced gym teacher that is that's taken the community sport coach course to help out once a week or with your summer program, it's very likely as a club you would feel safe with that individual providing supervision for a second group. Not having the community coach on deck by themselves, but having them there with a second group. I think in terms of the sport guidance, the groups need to be operating as separately as possible. If the coaches are debriefing afterwards, via phone or however that looks, that's separate. If they're running over back across the pool deck to work with each other, that really gets away from the groups of 10, right? And so we need to follow the groups of 10 with that 3 meters of distancing so that we are following the sport guidance, so that the facilities can are comfortable that we're, as a sport, following the sport guidance would be the best way that I could say that.
Thank you, Kevin. We have to clarify the ability of the swimmer. I think we've done that in the competition readiness standards. So I don't know who sent that question in. So if we haven't, please just send me another text and we can do any clarifying there. I know coaches can coach different groups at different times, but do the groups of kids have to stay the same from training day to training day? Alana with the Derek Devil Rays. Kevin.
The groups do not have to stay the same. The requirement is that there is a maximum group size of 10, and so this is a group size. And the wording that I would use and try to avoid at this point, last summer and in the fall, the swim clubs operated under the premise of cohorts, and those cohorts were individuals that were within very close proximity for that period of time. At this point, since they're required to be 3 meters apart indoors, 2 meters apart outdoors at all times, if the group's all maintaining distancing, what happens on Monday might be different than what happens on Wednesday, as long as everybody's following the rules, as long as everybody's maintaining distancing. And so in addition to the example of potentially a different group members, you may have the example of, from 4 to 5, maybe you've got a senior swimmer in the water, and from 5:30 to 6:30, that swimmer is actually coaching a group, and that would be permitted as well. So you can have a coach doing multiple groups at different times, not at the same time, but you could actually have somebody swimming as well as coaching a group at different times. That's all permitted because they all have to maintain distancing.
Thanks, Kevin. Okotoks Stingrays, I think it's Jassy or Jesse. If I mispronounced your name, I apologize. For 5 to 7-year-old age group, our pool has asked for a parent to assist the swimmer in the water. Do we need to register the parent? Is this an insurance issue? We might need to take that one away. I don't think we've had that question before, have we, Val?
No.
I do know the parent would count as part of the group of 10, so that would mean that you could only have like 4 swimmers, 4 parents, 1 coach for 9, right? Unless you had a parent that had 2 children in the group. I think we might have to take that one away and get some clarity, and then we'll actually compile a Q&A document following this as well too, with some of the common questions that we had and published it, and we can get back to the group on that question. Genevieve, Spirit River Seawolves. Hello, I'm looking for clarification about Life Saving Society contacting communities with outdoor pools. They have contacted every community with an outdoor pool. So I don't know if they've contacted every community. What I was referencing today is I was on a stakeholder engagement call with Alberta Health, where Life Saving had advocated for Alberta Health to begin to look at guidance to support the opening of outdoor pools. I can tell you in my work with Kelly Carter, who is the CEO of Life Saving Society, with the We Are Ready campaign, that he has expressed that it is a priority or a focus to look at getting outdoor pools open this summer because of the safety aspect, of course, because it creates a body of water with a lifeguard. So, but what I will also say as well, that there are some facilities across the province for purely financial reasons that you may see will not open. I would say in our larger city centers, we're not seeing all of the pools open purely for financial reasons. And there could be those existing reasons within your community outdoor pools as well. So what I would suggest that as a club is that you reach out to your municipality or whoever is running your pool in your community and begin to have the dialogue and the conversation about what it might look like to open and what it would look like to have clubs in there, because then they might get an idea of sort of revenue that they could expect to come in from the use of the swim clubs within the community would be one of the recommendations that I would make. And again, like I said, I know it's a focus, but it's not necessarily, we have no control over whether they'll open or not, but we're happy to help and assist where we can. And I would encourage you to share the We Are Ready video as well too, if you could. So, from Kathy Pinoca. Hello, Kathy. I can't send a question. Oh, because okay, we won't do that one. Can swimmers use, she sent it to someone else. Can swimmers use the change rooms? Can different groups go into the same change room just at different times? I think that's a Kevin question.
Yeah, and so, you know, the change room piece, I would say over the last year has been a revolving door. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but it's been something that has changed significantly, and every facility may have their own different restrictions and requirements based on flow. Some facilities have, you know, gender neutral change room access. Some facilities have, you know, one way in, one way out requirements. And so that's going to be a specific question for your facility. You know, within our own return to requirements, I'm at this point, I may be forgetting the exact wording of what we have in the document, but it's going to be something along the lines of change room use must be limited or should be limited in terms of time period, but to work with your facility with respect to what the exact requirements are. I think that goes for before and after practice.
And I think what Kevin has said there too is key. I think the other thing I would strongly encourage clubs to do is not just to reach out to your facilities around opening, but to reach out to begin to work with them. Because Kevin's correct, they all have slightly different protocols. Some have special entrances for clubs to come in and exit outside of the general public. So part of that will have to be built into your return to plan and guidelines that you're looking at doing. So I would encourage you as early as you can to reach out and begin to have those conversations with your facilities. We have another question from Kirby again. Hello, is there any chance of 18 plus master swimmers training this year? That again was more a step 3 question, and I think Kevin addressed that a little bit, the possible easing of restrictions for adult sports. So at this point, the only allowable activity for the 18 and over is the one-on-one training and the low intensity training within a fitness setting. So at this point, we're not allowed to permit that, but that could change with an easing of restrictions. So we will keep you posted. Are coaches able to cover for each other from day to day? They would not circulate during a single practice, but cover someone else's group on different days. I think you've addressed that, Kevin, but maybe just reiterate that again.
Yeah, and so the maximum group size of 10 it's not a rollover from day to day, right? So on Monday it might have myself as the coach, and on Tuesday it might have Cheryl as the coach, for example. So that maximum group size of 10 is the key. And the reason it doesn't matter about the individuals is because that maximum, or that because of that distancing is being maintained.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Glenn with Medicine Hat. In the model of 8 swimmers in a double lane, 3 meters apart, 4 at each end, if there are siblings, this is a good question, if there are siblings in the same group, can they be within 3 meters?
So the easy answer is yes. Members of, and it's slightly different wording, is members of the same household can be within, you know, the same lane for argument's sake. That being said, you know, members of the public don't know that you know, Johnny and Susie are siblings. That the management of 2 people coming together within the practice environment when everybody else isn't allowed makes for a complicated scenario, I think, at best. So one of the clubs actually provided an example where they were doing widths, and they had all the lane ropes out. They were doing widths across the pool, and the reason they were doing that is because they would take all the family members and they would put them as close to as possible together, and they're going straight across the pool. And by doing that, they got themselves to put in like 4 or 5 extra kids, you know, across the entire length of the pool, you know, by having siblings together. So there is ways to have the siblings together that that works. But sometimes in terms of your management, you'll have to consider that.
All right, thanks, Kevin. How are the winter clubs finding effectiveness of the circle swimming of up to 8 swimmers within a double lane? Feedback of what's been working would be great.
I'd have to say that depends on the level of experience of each of the swimmers. A number of the clubs have preferred to go 6 maximum, and that depends on if they're in a 25-meter. It depends on the width of their lanes. It depends on the ability of the swimmers, or how close in ability the swimmers are, right? And so if you have a swimmer that's 15 and at the winning provincials level, and a swimmer that's 9 that's learning to swim in the same double lane, having 8 in that lane versus 6 is challenging. The other thing with 8 in a double lane is you're going to have the first kids catching the last kids very quickly. There's a lot of stopping and a lot of management that occurs within that scenario. A lot of them have preferred 6. Now, that being said, there's also an example of doing a chase or a double end scenario where there's 4 swimmers at one end, 4 swimmers at another end, within a 6-lane 25. I think there's an example in my book. And the coaches that have offered that program have said that it was like they've had really, really good success with that workout format. That does reduce the numbers within that pool space. And so there's a lot of considerations there when it comes to how many kids are swimming and what those costs are for the group. With 8 kids running a double lane, 2 coaches, it's like 50-50 work, right? One group goes, the other group goes. They're all apart. But is that the affordable option as well to make sure that the numbers are maximized? So I'd love to have a better answer than that. But I think those would be a few of the considerations and thoughts that I've heard from a few of the programs.
And I would say as we get closer to the startup and your coaches are in place, we would welcome the opportunity to set up sort of a session with them too, to go through some of the scenarios that they can set up within the pool. Because I know it's quite a bit different than what everybody is used to. And I mean, that's another consideration, I think, for you as you're beginning to plan your summer season as well too, that you may be used to your entire club coming to train from 4 to 6 every day, and that may change. You may be looking at longer blocks of time. So again, this is good information to be able to share with some of your pools if they're looking to open, that you may be able to actually utilize pool space from 3 in the afternoon until 8 at night. And I'm just making that up, but you will likely require more pool time, right? So those are just things to consider. Question from Jeff with the sailfish: can you have 9 swimmers in a double lane? I think he's probably referencing one of your diagrams. I think that you might want to speak to the passing piece too, Kevin, if you could.
Yeah, and I don't. If you had 5 at one end and 4 at the other end, it just has to be all spaced out. And if you've got if you have a 15-year-old that is doing their 25s in 20 seconds, you're not going to be able to keep them separated from the 5th swimmer there, right? So the speed of the swimmers, the ability of the swimmers is going to need to be considered. The diagrams there are for example only. And so if they're all individuals that are aware of their surroundings, they're wearing goggles, they're going to stop at a certain point and make sure that they're not catching the other individuals. Then if you can find a way to make it work, then fill your boots. I think it's going to be something that you want to be careful to manage at the start, because what none of the clubs want to experience is having a conflict with their facility, or having the facility have to deal with individuals that have any perception that that our sport is not following the rules or the guidance that everybody else has to follow.
Yeah, and I would say the other piece just on that, and I know that's not what the intent of the questions. There's some really great questions coming in, and I thank you for trying to think through what the summer will look like. The one thing in all the work that we've done with our government partners in SPAR and Alberta Health repeatedly, they have said, don't try to find the loopholes, right? That's when you're going to get yourself in a bind. So, and then, you probably have been involved in other sports throughout the year, and so that aspect might not be new to you, but as you're planning in your board roles and in your head coach roles for the summer season, just keep that in mind, that it's not about finding the loopholes, it's about actually following the guidelines and requirements that are in place, and then it should work well for everybody. The other piece I just wanted to quickly comment on, and Kevin mentioned this around the changing health orders, and she did a great job of sort of explaining what happens when those change, the announcement comes, and what's said by Premier Kenney or Minister Shandro sometimes is not what's written in the health order exactly. And we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So even prior to that health order being published, we are actually liaising with our partners in Alberta Health and within SPAR to get clarity on what some of that means as the health order is being published. What I would just ask is know that that is going on behind the scenes, because my guess is you will experience that at some point through the summer where we get potentially a major change in a health order. And if you just pause and allow us to do our work, know that we are working as fast as we can to get that figured out so we can get the information out to everybody at the same time. And when we get, dozens of questions coming in from the announcement, it actually delays us from being able to actually figure out what you can do to get that out. So the only thing I would ask is that know we're doing the work behind the scenes, and just pause and give us that chance to do it, because our goal is to get the information out to you as fast as you can so that you can do the changes that need to be done in the pool. So at this point, I looks like I have a bubble, someone texting something. I'm not sure if they're writing. I have no other questions coming in. I don't know if there's any other questions that anybody has. Thanks, Val, for offering a registrar webinar. You've lost the majority of our board over the last 2 years. I have no idea how to register a swimmer. I guess I'll just comment on that briefly too. I know that from a summer swimming season perspective, you guys didn't have a season last summer, and we did affiliate all the clubs to keep your DNO intact. If you need help and support with your board because you don't have the numbers and you're needing to hold AGMs, reach out. If there's a need to pull together even a session one night on that, because I know if you've had a period of time where you've not been operating, you may have the number of board members that have dropped off. You do need to keep that current number within your bylaws, your quorum, to make sure your insurance is intact, but don't panic. If you don't have that, let us know, and then we notify our broker that we're working with the club to resolve it. So if you're needing help and support that way, don't be afraid to reach out. And if we get enough questions from clubs, we can certainly kind of do an evening like this, just geared to those clubs that may be sort of wondering what to do around AGMs that they haven't been able to host, and just sort of recruiting members on. But know that we will provide some of that training that was offered in the previous years. And as Val said, we're here to help and support, and she's available to take questions on that. I think the same is true for officials training. Even without competitions, we need to continue to train officials. So yes, we've kind of put a pause on our official training just because there has not been competitions. Doesn't mean we can't run official clinics online, and Kevin can take that away for Megan as well too, so that we're ready if the competitions are there. So we do understand that that's sort of an area where we may need to support clubs in coming back, but know that likely if you go back to a competition, you're not going to have as many officials on the pool deck. One of the programs that we did with the year-round clubs that, again, once we know we can do some racing with the summer clubs, we can do a virtual racing and a racing unplugged, where we actually had kids just race and coaches record times, and we took those times unofficially and did some ranking. So even without official competitions, as soon as we're able, we'll look to, through Kevin, to set up some of those activities that you guys can incorporate within the summer club programs as well too. Any other questions from anybody? I think we're almost at the bottom of the hour. That was exactly an hour and a half, Lynette, as we planned. So
Awesome.
I know, just before I turn it over to Lynette, I just wanted to say thank you all for showing up tonight and spending time with us. And I'm excited to support and help you as we look to the summer season. I know it's going to be a different season than what many of you have experienced in the past, but the important part, I think, is to get kids back in the water in any way that we can. And so we're here to help and do that. And don't be afraid to reach out to any one of us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lynette for some closing words.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Kevin and Val. So we know that the road ahead won't be without challenges and speed bumps, as I mentioned earlier. Whether we're adjusting to the new guidelines, navigating this COVID era, we do want to make sure you understand you are not facing this alone. We're proud of how everyone's come together, how we're able to safely provide the summer swimming experience to our swimmers last year and then this year. We're going to build on what we learned from last season and hopefully continue to provide the best experience for our swimmers. We're all here for you. There's lots of resources, as Cheryl explained, for your club to access. We have the ASSA website, as well as Swim Alberta has a wide range of templates, and we'll both be providing updates to clubs as we know it. You can access everything through the, I think it links, most stuff links into the Swim Alberta website if it's their information or not. We do, when you have time, it might be worth all clubs just to go online, see that we have new policies in place around safe sport, confidentiality, conflict of interest, as well as inclusion and equality. They are adopted policies of Swim Alberta, as well as a new rules and regs and policies. So it might be worth clubs to just going in and familiarizing yourself with those. Due to the evolving situation in the province, again, just to echo Cheryl, we ask that you reach out directly. As we've learned anything from this last year, there's lots out there in the community, lots of hearsay, lots of rumors. Please come to us directly so that we can make sure that you have the most up-to-date information available to you, and the correct information, because it's going to change quickly. So I just want to close by saying thank you, and thank you to everyone, whether you're local or it's our provincial partners, for the contribution that you have made to sport, to your club, and then to the youth is very much appreciated. So thank you all for joining us.